Welcome to Midnight Files, where we'll be going through Project Blue Book from beginning to end. Our first file is a real short one. It's out of Hungary, and people were seeing these silver balls. The project record says that rumors were drifting into Budapest of silver balls flashing across the sky, moving at high speed. The next page reads, "It is extremely unlikely that the objects observed in Hungary were meteorites, unless the meager description given here is quite inaccurate. Without knowledge of the speed or trajectory of the objects, nothing definite can be said." I'm going to have to agree with the investigator on this one. There's far too little information to make any real use of it. However, it is important to note that enough people were seeing it that these rumors were traveling across the entire country. So that's pretty strange. In June of '47 in Spokane, Washington, we have a strange sighting which was ruled a weather balloon, as the Air Force is so famous for doing in Project Blue Book. The letter reads, "Dear Sir, on June 21st, shortly before noon, I was in our yard at home when I happened to glance up at a passing plane. I'm not too familiar with the various kinds of planes, but I would say that it was a two-motored one from one of the nearby bases here, flying south at about 10,000 or 12,000 feet. On the mere glance of the plane, a bright shiny flash attracted my attention, coming from approximately 2,000 or 3,000 feet lower than the plane, but slightly ahead of the line of vision of the plane. Immediately after the flash, I could see a more or less distinct line, or slim body where the flash had been, only further south. And as I looked intently, I became aware of other more indistinct flashes, above, ahead, and behind the first, but so far away that I could see nothing more than the flashes at any time. The first, though, would flash repeatedly as it moved along. My first thought was that the plane had thrown out handbills, but this could not be, as the flashes or discs were ahead of the plane. I called my wife from in the house, and she saw them as distinctly as I did. We wondered what they could be. We realized they could not be handbills, as they must have been of a good size to show so plain from such height. And again, they were all silvery. When last seen, they were still traveling south, possibly a little to the west of south, but by this time the plane was ahead of them. In other words, they were to the back of the plane in our line of vision. We thought no more of them until we see them mentioned in the papers. Then we realized we had perhaps seen what others had. One thing different, though, it seemed to me they were not traveling as fast as the plane, as will be noticed from the above. We realize too now that whatever they were, they must have been quite large, being as plain as the nearest one was, yet so high, and again, they were traveling south, against the prevailing winds. At least some of the smaller flashes, if not all, were as high or higher than the plane, but the nearest seemed lower, both when it flashed and otherwise, as it did intermittently. This to you, as it may be of use, respectfully." So we have a husband and a wife, as well as many other people in Spokane, Washington, seeing a strange flashing silvery object moving against the wind, but yet they're going to say it was a weather balloon moving against the wind. That makes perfect sense. But that's what Project Blue Book is known for, dismissing everything as a weather balloon. No matter how many people saw it or what they saw, it must be a weather balloon. Now here's a real quick one out of Greenfield, Massachusetts. This one simply says the object was round and irregular with polished aluminum. But here on the second page, the absence of a trail does not favor the meteorite hypothesis, although the speed and brilliance of the object might. When we look back at the other short one from Hungary, it said it is extremely unlikely that the objects observed in Hungary were meteorites. So if both of these are unlikely that they're meteorites, then why are they bringing them up at all as meteorites? It doesn't make any sense, unless they're trying to find any reason besides UFOs. Now, if you want to talk about the Air Force dismissing UFO sightings, just wait till you see this one in Weiser, Idaho. The submitted report goes like this. On the evening of June 12th, about 6:15, a neighbor and I returned home from another neighbor's, glanced into the sky towards the west, and saw what we thought was smoke from an airplane. She mentioned that she had never seen that before, so we stopped to look and listen, thinking we would see the plane. But there was no sound, so we kept looking until we saw a tiny object from which the vapor was emitting. It was so far away we could not determine the size or even the shape. Its only identity was a glisten in the sun. We had watched this one for a few seconds when from the general direction of the sun, another object shot into the sky. It followed the general direction of the first, shooting up and down before settling into a southeasterly course across the sky, where we followed this until they were only a glisten and the vapor could no longer be seen. After the objects were gone, we continued to look and watch the vapor that had been left, which now looked like clouds but kept the shape, and the shape seemed to glide across the sky into the east, where there was a black streak leading to the horizon. The vapor stayed in the sky for over an hour. So these two ladies see the shiny object emitting this black trail of smoke across the sky when another one shoots up in the air, bounces up and down and follows it, also emitting a black cloud until they fade off into the distance. Let's see what the Air Force has to say about this. There's nothing in the description of this incident that is fatal to the hypothesis that the objects observed were parts of a double fireball. But any such identification must remain uncertain. The most convincing element favoring the meteorite hypothesis is the persistent train. Fireballs occasionally leave trains that persist for over an hour. As far as trajectory is concerned, this is an agreement with that to be expected from a meteor on its way out from the sun, it having gone towards the sun several weeks previously, and now on its return journey towards outer space. Such a fireball would be traveling relatively slowly and could appear to shoot out from the sun and to travel in a southeasterly direction. I feel like he's just making stuff up now. I mean, it doesn't even make any sense what he's saying. The absence of bright flame and noise is not unusual, since reported daylight meteors are frequently not luminous, but do leave a trail and often no noise is heard. Nor is the fact that there were two such objects fatal to the hypothesis. The object could easily have been single and have broken in two, either in its journey around the sun or upon entering the Earth's atmosphere. There have been several cases of comets that were single on their trip towards the sun and double on the way out. Since comets and meteors are closely related as far as structure is concerned, the double feature is entirely possible. I would say that their structure is closely related, seeming how they're exactly the same thing, just one of them enters the Earth's atmosphere, and the comet doesn't. It's just proof that this guy has no idea what he's talking about, but he was told to explain everything as a meteorite. This is where it gets offensive. The shooting up and down might be dismissed as subjective and illusionary, although small bits shooting off from the main meteor could also give this effect. In spite of all this investigator would prefer a terrestrial explanation for the incident. So both of these people had an illusionary effect where they were seeing exactly the same thing. And I'm sure he would prefer a terrestrial explanation because there's no way he's allowed to report it as a UFO. On the Project 10073 record, the summary says an object shot up and down before leveling out with a glistening trail, and the conclusion was contrails. See, that doesn't make sense either, because previously he said they were meteorites, and now he's saying they're contrails. Contrails is the byproduct of combustion reaction freezing in the atmosphere. He doesn't even address what caused the combustion reaction in the conclusion. Once again, just a complete dismissal, and nothing's even adding up or relating to each other. The whole thing is just a big dismissal to something that was very, very unusual from multiple witnesses. Well, that's all for tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you around.